At Houston last week, Don Walsh drove to a wild final round win.
Started to shake a little bit, I pedaled it, and got the win. Hope we didn't use up all of our good luck, because you know you can never have too much good luck.
That victory made car owner and crew chief Harry Hruska proud and hopeful for the balance of the season.
The team is just, on cloud nine. We couldn't be happier with the performance, and we're really looking forward to the rest of the season.
But despite the celebration, the team knows they'll have their hands full when the J&A Service Series rolls into Atlanta. Within the NHRA is a class of car that defies convention. Door slammers with nitrous, turbos, blowers. These are the Mavericks. This is Pro Mod. A huge crowd is gathered here at Atlanta Dragway for the NHRA Summit Racing Equipment Southern Nationals and the J&A Services Pro Modified Series. During qualifying, the bright yellow turbocharged Corvette in the far lane of Troy Coughlin Jr. had this repeated problem.
Well, when it would leave, it would just go into a tire shake, and it just wouldn't recover.
On 3 consecutive qualifying attempts, it would not recover, and that means number 2-point earner Troy Coughlin Jr. coming into the event fails to qualify, and that will indeed kill him in the point standings. Meanwhile, we go to the first round of eliminations. Khaled Al-Balushi in the near lane heats the tires against Don Walsh at the wheel of Harry Hruska's twin-turbocharged Camaro that currently leads the points.
Both lanes are pretty tough right now because of the sun. It's hot out there, it's greasy out there. And I really think the person who's going to win rounds today and this weekend, if it stays sunny like this, is going to be the guy that gets down the racetrack.
The silver Camaro, tuned by Frank Manzo, stages last against Don Walsh in the first race of eliminations. And both drivers have serious problems getting these 4,000 horsepower monsters to hook up to, as Don Walsh pointed out, a very tricky racetrack. Walsh nowhere near his qualifying effort.
Well, Don Walsh, it hasn't gotten tricky out there. It's turned into Chinese algebra, man. It is nuts out there right now.
You know, it's tough out there. We're struggling. We've been struggling all weekend. I can't give it to my team to just keep going like they've been going. Here to get a win here is, you win the last race, you show up in the next race, it doesn't matter what happened in the last race. We've got a whole new game going here.
A very good point. Now, earlier we saw Troy Coughlin Jr.'s yellow Jegs Corvette fail to qualify. This is his father, Troy Sr., the past world champion, taking on Jerry Capano's Delaware-based supercharged 63 Corvette. Capano was out in front, but he has to get in and out of the throttle, and that hands the win to the Ohioan and the turbocharged Chevy Corvette. Here's our top-end correspondent, Brian Loans.
Troy, there are a lot of different ways to win rounds out here, and it's going to be a crazy one today. That was work out there, man. Goes 95, 251 on the speed.
I'll tell you what, we get it converted NET, we'll pick up a couple more hundreds. But I'll tell you, the guys at TeamJags.com, I tell you, the guys at Proline, Steve Petty and the guys doing a hell of a job giving us a race car and a fast one to boot. We just need to keep kicking it in the fanny.
Next up, an all-supercharged matchup with, in the far lane, the young driver of the second J&A Services team car, Stephen Whiteley.
If we're not here racing, we're testing, and that's a big reason for the progress that we had. Not a lot of progress, but we're getting there. It's given us a direction on the right direction to go.
In his second year of competition, he had a first-ever round win at this race last year, but he's got Steve Matusik and the Agave Underground Tequila Chevy Camaro to contend with. This all-supercharged matchup will again pit 2 cars, which are very, very similarly affected by a 119-degree track temperature. Whiteley's one-of-a-kind Cadillac CTS-V has been incredibly popular this year, but remember, both drivers are racing on 2-car teams. Something happened on the starting line to Whiteley, and as you can see, Matusik drives it through uncontested. A good run, but something weird happened on the far side.
Seems like the Agave Underground Aeromotive cars, Jimmy's got a good tune-up in these things for the heat.
You know, Jimmy's world class. We all know that. We're excited to be here, and it seems like it's been a long time. So we're looking forward to going some rounds. If Danny gets by, I got him next round, so he's going to take a beating.
The Jim referred to as Jimmy Rector, the crew chief for both machines on the Agave Underground team. This should be a tremendous drag race coming up. There's 2-time and defending world champion Ricky Smith in the IDG Nitrous Camaro.
That sun out like that right there, ain't much I can do. It's definitely not a nitrous car track this weekend. It might have been last year, but I think you're going to see the nitrous cars struggle here right now on this track as hot as it is.
A valid point. Last year it was relatively cool here at Atlanta, and Ricky Smith's car powered on to a win. However, this time he's got the Summit Racing Equipment supercharged Chevy Camaro from Manitoba, Canada, of Kenny Lang. Lang stages first. Ricky goes in second. They leave the line together, and we've got a great drag race. Ricky gets sideways. Lang has upset crowd favorite Ricky Smith, and he left on him on the starting line. Wow!
Kenny Lang climbs out of the Summit Racing Equipment Camaro, and if there's one place you got to be good against Ricky, it's the starting line. You were great, 019.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, great car to go against, and I got to do my job. Summit's home track. I mean, yeah, just trying to do my best, and I know I had to do my best against him, and I had to cut a light and get the car to go down. It kind of hurt itself, I think, further down track, but hopefully I did my job.
Meanwhile, back in the pits, there's a thrash in the pit area of the #1 qualifier, Mike Janis. Can he fix it in time? Stay with us. When the J&A Services Pro Modified Series returns, we'll find out. This exclusive coverage of the NHRA J&A Service Pro Modified Drag Racing Series is brought to you by ARP, a world leader in fastener technology. By Precision Turbo and Engine, the winning edge in boosted performance. And by Aeromotive, serious fuel systems for pro mods to hot rods and everything in between. We continue with round #1 of eliminations here at the NHRA Summit Racing Equipment Southern Nationals in Atlanta Dragway, brought to you by Proline Racing Engines. It'll be Canadian Eric Latino and his beautiful green Chevy Camaro SS supercharged entry up first, alongside the wild Mustang of Mike Nowles.
I think one day I just love to come to an NHRA race and qualify. Boy, let me tell you, when you qualify, you get the itch to say, okay, now I'm I want to qualify and come down the ladder and hopefully win a race. So this year, our goal this year is definitely try to at least win one race.
The beautiful Ford Mustang of Knowles in the far lane, one of 10 supercharged entries that qualified for this 16-car field, but boy, he doesn't offer much of a race to Eric Latino. The Ontario Canadian advances with a great run. Once again, our man on the top end, Brian Lone.
Eric Latino, a tough customer in the other lane, and Mike Knowles at a very tricky racetrack this weekend. Just talk about what the run was at. You went 598, just over 230 miles an hour.
230, that's it. So I guess I must have lifted early because usually we'd be going about 244, 245. I didn't see Mike beside me, and I guess I wasn't looking for the finish line. Not too often I kind of cut it short, but hopefully everything's okay. That mile an hour is pretty low.
Next up, what should prove to be an incredibly popular matchup. Billy Glidden in the Mickey Thompson Tires and Wheels nitrous oxide injected Ford Mustang takes on Danny Rowe at the wheel of the second Agave Underground Tequila supercharged Chevy Camaro, wrenched by Jimmy Rector.
He really understands the racetrack. He understands the weather. A lot of guys out there struggling with what's going to go down with the heat and the temperature of the racetrack, but I think we're going to be okay. Jimmy's been here before, and it's not his first time, so I think we'll be good.
Danny Rowe placing all his faith in the big guy who just walked away from the car on the starting line. Billy Glidden, whose nitrous car is especially susceptible to these conditions, leaves the starting line too soon on a red light. And then Rowe suffers an explosion at half track and limps across the finish line a winner. Wow. On board with Danny Rowe, the car leaves the line. And then kaboom. You see Danny literally thrown forward from the negative G-forces of the car, no longer accelerating.
Well, a tale of two cities on that one, Danny. You get the round win going 691, but boy, we felt the concussion from that one all the way down here.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's the second win we were hurt this weekend. We don't know what's going on. It's got to be something simple. We went through the other motor. It was great, and I saw him leave, and I was like worried about it. We caught up to him, and all of a sudden the explosion blew the hood off of it, and hopefully we're gonna get it all back together. I got Steve, so I have to put him on the trailer.
I was gonna say, a guy in a very familiar looking car coming in the second round.
Yeah, he's a badass too, so we're gonna have to go out there and do what we have to do with him. It'll be exciting. Glad to make another round.
That's right, Danny Rowe will take on teammate Steve Matusik in the next round, but meanwhile, here's Mike Castellana and his crew chief Shannon Jenkins against the CRC Brake Clean Dodge Daytona of Pete Farber.
It's gone down all 3 times. We did break the tranny on the first run, so it didn't look like it went down to like guys in the stands and stuff, but it made it clear to the gear change, so it would have been a good pass then too.
A tremendous amount of damage incurred by a lot of teams just qualifying for this field. Meanwhile, in this nitrous versus supercharged battle, Castellana is out front near the center line. It's not a pretty run, but it's a winning run. Almost every pairing we've seen this round has been affected by these weird track conditions. What's it like inside on this hot racetrack? You can see an awful lot of steering going on for Pete Farber, who finally just gives up and says the heck with it.
Mike Castellani, we let you use the whole lane, but boy, that's taking it to a whole new level.
The car, it shook down low and the car kept moving around out there, but just held on to it as long as we could and made it to the finish line. I didn't see where he was, so I didn't know what was going on over there, so I just couldn't let out of it. You know, as long as it was in my lane, I had to stay with it.
The next match will pit Michigander Bob Ram and his Rear and Morrison-powered nitrous oxide-injected Corvette against the #1 qualifier, New Yorker Mike Janis.
Oh, we just finally got everything working. Now the motor's been making good power all year. It's just a matter of getting the car itself and right gearing right, and it all worked together. We always knew we had the power to do it, and today's race day on a hot racetrack. Let's see how smart we are now.
Nobody has come anywhere near Ram's pole position 5.87-second blast. Bob Ram and his family roll up to the starting line to take on the red, white, and black Buffalo, New York veteran who has won a lot of national championships in that car. Inching ever so carefully into the stage beam, both drivers are now ready. And for the first time in this round, we have a side-by-side drag race. Mike Janis inches ahead to take a tremendously close drag race in which reaction time was an extremely important part.
Okay, Mike, it's been thrash all weekend for everybody. Gear ratio changes, anything you can do to try to figure this racetrack out, and you had an eye full of Bob Ram the whole way down. Margin of victory on that, only 0.05 of a second. You go 5.98, 2.41.
Wow, yeah, the car actually shut off after the 8th mile, like 3-4 hits, on and off. It did that to our first qualifier. We thought we had the problem fixed, all new ignition, but obviously we got a gremlin somewhere, a loose wire or whatever. It's going to be a long night.
The Jansen Automotive driver advances, as does 4 other supercharged cars. There's only 2 turbo machines and 1 nitrous racer left in this field. And speaking of the turbocharged cars, the quickest winner of round #1 was this guy, Troy Coughlin Sr. Stick around to see how he does. Welcome back to the NHRA J&A Service Pro Modified Drag Racing Series presented by Proline Racing Engines. We're ready for round #2 of eliminations here at Atlanta Dragway. 2 Camaros that couldn't be more different. This is the twin turbocharged elevated rear wing version driven by Don Walsh. He'll be taking on Mike Janis from upstate New York, and he was talking about the electrical problem that's giving him fits.
It's always happening in high gear, and you can start it up in the pits as many times as you want, and everything sounds fine. So it's something to do with vibration related or load related. We don't really know, but hopefully we have it figured out.
Hopefully it'll go away in this all-important matchup in round #2. Oh, and the door flies off while his opponent goes into a giant wheel stand. What a crazy drag race. Walsh will be the winner, but nobody got out of this one alive. Wow, what a weird battle. The replay will show the passenger door being shaken off of Janis's Camaro in the near lane, but look at the wheel stand for the far side.
I give a shout out to all my sponsors. I want to give a shout out to my biggest sponsor I have, and that's my wife. Today's our anniversary. She's here to share it with me, and I just couldn't be any happier to have her here with me.
Now you're really going to close the deal.
we got to try, right?
Thanks, man.
Now, the turbocharged yellow Chevy Corvette of Troy Coughlin Sr. takes on Mike Castellana's Speed Tech-sponsored nitrous-injected Camaro, the last of the nitrous cars in the field. And Castellano gets sideways as the tires shake yet again. Meanwhile, the Ohioan drives through with the best run of elimination so far. A tremendous pass for Troy Coughlin Sr. It's double vision. The 2 supercharged Chevy Camaros of the Agave Underground team, owned by Mike Ivey, are ready for battle.
In the sport of drag racing, when you have a 2-car team, the ultimate goal is to meet in the final round. Matuzik and Rowe, they're racing in the second round, and we put it to them to find out who's the best between them.
You know, he's the best race car driver I've ever been around in my life. I praise God every day that I'm with him. It's been an awesome experience. He is just the best guy in the world.
We finally agree on something. That's fantastic. You know, we're very fortunate to have Steve involved with us. I brought him an extra shot of energy today so he can cut a light and get down the racetrack. We know that there's nothing going to happen to his blower or his fuel system or his tires. I've got it all covered. You're going to be safe.
Well, you heard from the drivers. What about Jimmy Rector, the crew chief that tunes both of these things?
You know, if they both go down the track, they're within 100 for 2, so whoever who leads first is going to win. So they're going to be beating themselves up. Don't even getting mad at me.
Excellent point. And from that perspective, Jimmy Rector wants both cars to run exactly the same and allow the winner to be determined solely by reaction time. Let's see what happens. It is a drag race. But the advantage goes to Danny Rowe. Whoa! And he gets sideways and smacks the wall as he pulls the parachute at the finish line. Nobody expected that. Wow. Bear in mind, the actual contact occurred at 245 miles per hour. The car gets sideways. Why? We're not quite sure yet. It doesn't appear to be putting any liquid down under the tires. It may have actually been a situation where the parachutes lifted the rear of the car off the ground and set it down a little sideways. On board, Danny has the wheel cranked hard to the right, and the slap against the wall was noticeable, that's for sure. But Danny keeps her straight.
Danny, the car comes across the finish line, high 5-second run, things are good, and then all of a sudden it just goes left.
You know, I was driving all the way down the racetrack and I wanted to skate around that lane a little bit, and I thought I had it, and I threw it to laundry. I didn't feel nothing. I tapped the brake and it just turned. It was like there was nothing there. It was like I was on ice. And you know, I tried to bring it back and it just kind of caught the nose and hit the back. And it's frustrating as hell. We have a great race car and great race team. And it's a shame for the Gavi Underground people, and I'm just pissed. I'm just pissed. It's bad, bad.
Bear in mind, that occurred on a winning run. Can Danny Rowe make it back for the semifinal round? It doesn't look promising. Meanwhile, an all-Canadian battle stage is up on the starting line. Two supercharged methanol-burning machines, Eric Latino in the near lane, and Kenny Lang, far side in the Summit Racing Equipment car. Manitoba versus Ontario, and this one's going to the Manitoban. Kenny Lang, a tremendous run, the quickest of the round.
I got all kinds of good news for Kenny Lang. 007 on the tree. You go 591. You get lane choice next round. So this thing's really come around for you guys.
Yeah, you know, it's been good. We heard a motor yesterday in our round one, and Pete Farber, a good friend of mine, his motor dynoed more than mine, and believe it or not, bored me his complete motor. Wow. So all of us worked hard. Al Billis, the whole crew, Summit, finally got the car back on track, and hopefully I'm doing my job.
Indeed he is. As we go to the semifinal round, we've got two turbo cars and two supercharged cars, but the question is, can Danny Rowe make it back? Stay with us. We'll find out if this car can be repaired. This exclusive coverage of the NHRA J&A Service Pro Modified Drag Racing Series is brought to you by the School of Automotive Machinists, education at full speed. By RPM, the Real Pro Mod Association. And by J&A Service, a leader in oil and gas well servicing and exploration. It's time for the semifinal round, but bad news from the pit area. Danny Rowe's Camaro cannot be repaired in time to compete in the final four of this drag race. Meanwhile, Don Walsh and Harry Ruska's Camaro remains one of the most powerful on the property. Here's an inside look.
ProMod 101 is brought to you by Precision Turbo and Engine.
We understand that all four of the headers go into the turbocharger and drives the turbine and makes the horsepower and everything. So why have you got two exhausts here?
Well, Ted, one exhaust is for the wastegate discharge. The other exhaust is the major amount of exhaust that comes out of the engine.
Why do you have a wastegate? What does it do?
Well, remember, this engine's making over 3,400 horsepower. We have to process a lot of air, but we also have to control the turbine. The rules that we have are 43 psi of the compressed air into the engine. This turbocharger is capable of excess of 55 psi. So the wastegate has a really serious job here because it has to maintain parity in this class. It's really important that the nitrous guys and the blower guys and the turbo guys all have the similar characteristics down the track so we can all win races. The 43 psi is the rule that's been determined to make that true. And in this case, our wastegate is regulating the pressure into the engine to support it.
So the wastegate keeps you from making more boost.
It makes us, yeah, it keeps us from making too much power.
Well, Don Walsh in the near lane is going to need all the horsepower his machine can legally make if he expects to put a dent in Kenny Lang's romp to the finals here. In and out of the throttle for Lang, and that was all it took. Lang was forced to get on and off the throttle, and look at Lang putting down a second consecutive 591 to advance to the final round against another guy who's gone 591, Troy Coughlin Sr. on his official solo run since Danny Rowe cannot return for the match. Coughlin had the rare opportunity to experiment on the starting line to see how much power is too much power on this hot racetrack, and that could end up being the difference in the final round against Kenny Lang.
sun's out, a little bit more brutal on the track and stuff like that. So we're just going to have to definitely put in our A game tune-up and be sharp.
This is my first week with a clutch back in it after 2 years of not using it, so it's all concentration. It's all in my head. I got to be accurate. I got to be there, and you know the guy beside you is going to do it, and they're going to run fast. So I got to be there to be competitive.
Very unusual for Kenny Lang to have switched from an automatic transmission back to a manually shifted tranny, as his crew chief Al Billis knows well that this matchup against his rival Steve Petty, the man who makes the power in the yellow turbocharged Corvette, is going to come down to who makes the power and who can get it to the racetrack efficiently. There's Steve Petty, the man behind Proline Racing Engines and the crew chief for Troy Coughlin. He looks over to his opponent, Al Billis and Kenny Lang, and says, let's race. Here it is, the final round of the Summit Racing Equipment NHRA Southern Nationals here at Atlanta Dragway. Turbocharged versus supercharged Chevrolets. Coughlin takes his time. He's finally in, and we've got a race. But Coughlin's car shakes the tires. It's over. The man from Manitoba, Kenny Lang, wins here at the NHRA Southern Nationals. A tremendous pass to boot. Unbelievably consistent in unbelievably weird conditions.
You went through a season last year, which obviously couldn't have been a whole lot of fun. I mean, you were working hard. It just wasn't going your way. And now this has got to be just a huge deal for momentum, confidence, the whole works.
I mean, we never quit. I mean, we put an automatic in the car and played with that for a long time and struggled. But I didn't want to give up on it because I know it can be quick. We just didn't get it quick. And then after the last race, it's like, okay, enough playing around. Let's put the clutch back in the car. We know we'll haul ass, and we'll know we'll win some races or have a shot at qualifying and running good. So that's what we did, and we made a competitive car again.
Indeed it did. The point standings reflect that Kenny Lang has moved up into the top 10, but Don Walsh remains atop the field. Troy Coughlin managed to stay number 2. The next event on the NHRA J&A Pro Mod Tour, Englishtown, New Jersey. Hopefully we'll see you then.